We'll find out.
Chairperson Welch, Vice Chair Inverson,
A present.
Member Martinovich, Member Kimbrough, Member Galeri, Member Burge, Member Curry. A quorum is present.
Here,
Oh,
Oh,
thank you.
oh, do we have,
For the record,
we have Curry here.
Yep,
So we have-
sorry.
Christine Curry and Susan Martinovich are online.
okay. Hi.
They're really tiny. They're so tiny.
Okay. Let's see. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Open Space Committee. And we are limiting public comment to 3 minutes. And I believe Jennifer is going to keep time. So, any public comment? Come up to the microphones.
Madam Chair, Ben Johnson, Senior Deputy District Attorney for the record. I just wanted to clarify for the meeting tonight that we will be doing public comment at the beginning and the end of the meeting. In future meetings, public comment may be allowed after each individual agenda item, but for tonight's meeting, I just wanted to make clear that we will be doing it at the beginning and the end.
Thank you. And also, please, oh, it's not plugged in? Oh, and please state your name.
Madam Chairman, my name is Dave Bentel. I'm a resident of Golden Eagle Lane, and I have my public comments here. Thank you. I'm discussing the Carson City Code of Ordinances, okay, in relation, this is a background to my thing, and Chapter 1218.020 says, applicability. This chapter shall be construed to assure consistency with the requirements of the Federal Clean Water Act and acts amendatory therefore or supplementary thereto, ... Not going to say the whole thing. 12.18.040, permits and fees. Permit application shall be consistent with those required submittals for an engineering permit, along with plans, specifications, project schedules, and all construction operations for earth disturbance of more than 1 acre in size or areas greater than 10,000 square feet of new impervious surface, or of more than 50 cubic yards of grading, which all 2 projects on Prison Hill apply to that. That applies to all 2 projects on Prison Hill, all 3 projects. 12.18.070, responsibility of permittee. 4, promptly removing all soil, miscellaneous debris, materials applied, dumped, or otherwise deposited on public streets. Okay. 12.18.08, general requirements. 2, all earth disturbances shall be conducted in such a manner as to effectively reduce accelerated soil erosion and resulting sedimentation, and should not exceed the total erosion expected to occur for the site in its totally undeveloped state. So under discussion, in my opinion, the constant use of Prison Hill as an OHV area is an ongoing earth disturbance area, clearly, and causes heavy erosion sediment transport to occur after rain. Taking the appropriate regulations into account, the city is fully responsible to clean up the sediment deposit on Golden Eagle Lane after every storm that causes eroded sediment to be deposited on the roadway. The existing sediment piles and stormwater ditches from the October 2021 storms have not been addressed by the city, neither has sediment from previous storms ever been addressed. The city owns Prison Hill, and therefore the city is responsible for removing the deposits of
30
sediment
seconds left.
from the roadway and stormwater ditches and ensuring that all culverts remain unblocked, as in 12.18.070 for above. The city may insist that the state repair or replace the block culvert and stop using the state as an excuse for not performing this work. The state may be fully justified in charging the city for this repair or replacement. It is deplorable that this issue has been allowed to
3 minutes.
continuously occur for over 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. next one.
Hello? Okay, we're ready to go, huh? No interruptions. 3 minutes. 47 years ago, the
Your
park,
name, please.
pardon me?
Your name.
Santos Corral. 47 years ago, the park was put in. The maintenance cost on that project between now was 10% cost of the new project. The new project of the park is curb and gutter, asphalt, parking lot, remove the horseshoe pit to the north side, take out the pond. 55,000 people live in Carson City. 20% of them use the park. Just less than 1% was notified. 50% of the people that go to the park use the pond. Donated to horses was grandfathered in 1974. 47 years, the bathrooms are 47 years old, and they still have paint on the wall from 47 years ago. The grandfather law was presented to Nevada May the 14th, 1878. In 1915, Nevada was one of the first states to adopt this because of the mining, the rural areas, and the new progress. Approximately 3,500 registered and active claims are in northern Nevada. 100 of those are in Carson City. One is Ross Gold Park. I'm not fighting for just me. I'm fighting for all of Carson City. Carson City is a cowboy town, not an asphalt jungle. This is the last of the parks in Carson City that don't have asphalt and concrete surrounding them. Because it's grandfathered in.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, committee members, I'm Kathleen Franco Simmons, and I was born and raised in Carson City, Nevada. I grew up on August Drive. I and my parents still live there. I am distributing to you a little snippet from the master plan, and also an ad, I guess it's an advertisement from the Nevada Appeal on the backside. So I'd like to just point out a couple of things to you on the map and how they relate to the ad on the backside. So on the map side, you can see August Drive. That's and I grew up right there, just one block away from Highway 50. We used to, as kids, everybody in the neighborhood would cross over Highway 50. It may not be the safest thing to do right now, but in my day, it was there was no problem with it. But we would cross over and go over to the Carson River. You can see the Carson River at the bottom of the map. This is where the Carson River makes the bend, and this is the closest point that the Carson River gets to Highway 50. There's a bunch of vacant land between that, and some of it is for sale right now. The Morgan Mill Road, you can see at the bottom there, south of the Morgan Mill Road is all that green space. Some of that is the Empire Ranch Golf Course. Some of that is the Morgan Mill Boat Ranch and parking area along the Carson River, and some of that is the open space, Morgan Mill open space. And then you can see the green space up above on the north end of the map. That is the Centennial, the golf course up there, and then leading into Centennial Park. So this vacant land is the shortest piece of open space land or open range right now between Highway 50 and the river. We see wild horses going down that way and coming back up that way to go back up into the foothills. The advertisement on the backside, this has been running in the Nevada Appeal for the past couple of weeks, and it lists 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lots that are for sale down there. One of them,
30
number
seconds.
19, okay, is in the master plan, it is designated community, regional, commercial. I'm not sure. I think there's a bunch of erroneous designations because this is the most beautiful area that's most accessible to neighborhoods, to the Carson River, and it's also used by a lot of wildlife, including the wild horses. So I'm just asking you to consider, I think,
minutes.
okay, sorry. You have a couple of items on your agenda, but do consider acquisition of that property for the city and for the citizens for recreational and open space use. Thank you.
Ms. Franco Simmons, sorry, Ben Johnson, just Deputy District Attorney for the record. Can I ask you if you have an extra copy of that to place one on the back table and give one to the clerk if you have one?
I'll give you the last one I was reading from. I've
If you
got
could just,
I have a couple
There,
extra
there
here.
are several
Okay.
extras. I was hoping that staff could make copies to the other commission or committee members.
just for open meeting law purposes, we need to provide one for the back table and one for the clerk.
Okay, I'll put mine
But
on the
yeah,
back.
that'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't get to the part where this is also part of the Empire City, historic Empire City, and I have a bunch of really cool documents or publications on Empire City. Thank you.
Am I clear to come?
Yeah.
Thank you, and appreciate this opportunity to speak before the committee, chair and guest, I guess you would say. I'd like to piggyback off of the last woman's statements.
And your name,
Denny
please?
French, Carson City, Nevada. I'm really worried and concerned about the preservation of a lot of areas that are considered routes and pathways for the horses, for the other animal and insect migration type situations as well. So that piece of property was not on my agenda tonight, but it is now on my radar, and I hope it is on yours. My considerations today is Lone Mountain and the properties adjacent to a part of what I thought was all Lone Mountain, and that had been preserved from being part of any development. And there seemed to me that there had been a deal. And since I'm not an old timer, I haven't been here but 20-some years, I don't know what all was negotiated. But Lone Mountain was saved by the Bell from complete annihilation and development. Somehow there was a deal resolved, and there's still 2 pieces of property right on that between North Ridge and off Roop, if you can imagine that, and then across North Ridge towards the Walmart, there's another piece of property that's for sale. And I would like to consider, to request that you consider accusation, or not accusation, that's not the right word, but potentially considering that for an area that's real and important to the deer. I know I walk a path, and I had for a long time followed the deer from across College Parkway up towards the areas past the freeway. And those animals take that pathway through to the hillside, down past the cemetery, down all the way into town in some cases. I follow their footsteps a lot. And that's been reduced by other development, of course, in the other areas of the community. But I think that we have not been considering animals' routes as much as we should, and their access to water and such. And both the properties, well, I'm sorry, the 2 properties that were mentioned earlier, they're not the one by Mr. Santos. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his last name, but he mentioned areas where accessibility to an area that doesn't have cement and concrete is very important still. And I think that should be considered with the development of that park, and I think it should be consideration for the property, consideration of acquisition, and then also for the
30
consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's on still.
Yeah, I'll give it to the clerk. Thanks so much, Rob.
Good evening, my name's Robin Orloff. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And I live in Carson City, and as you know, I'm an advocate for Prison Hill. And I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about the Prison Hill, the trail system and the interim map. And I have invited, I think, every OSAC member to come out on a tour with me, especially to look at the West Basin project, and that offer still stands. The map is, if you haven't been there, it's kind of difficult to follow. But the area I want to talk about, the West Basin stretches from the neighborhood, from the neighborhood at Snyder, where you walk in and it runs along Golden Eagle, right above Golden Eagle Lane to the staging area. And I'm concerned about erosion in these routes. You can see it's a very dense area of washes. They come from Golden Eagle Rock and they drain down all the way, some of them all the way to Golden Eagle Lane. But you can see the topography, that they're pretty deeply cut. And it turns out that these are ephemeral streams, and I didn't even know that until I took someone for a walk in the rain, and they went, wow, these are ephemeral streams, which means that they run water after rain and rainfall precipitation. Ephemeral water means a surface water that has a channel that is at all times above the water table and flows only in direct response to precipitation. So these are actual streams. They're magnificent. They flow over bedrock, granite. They're waterfalls, crevices that are etched over years in the granite. So I think I'd like to propose that maybe we have a discussion, a roundtable, somehow get together and talk about this project. The working group that was responsible for oversight hasn't met since October of 2019, and we were supposed to be the group to discuss trails and changes and make sure that they were compatible with the overall protection and preservation of this area. And I'd like to look specifically, I sent in my public comment, double waterfall I'm concerned about. It's only about 1 or 2 feet wide. It has vegetation on the slopes and on the banks, and it's being ridden by 6-foot wide rock crawlers, and I'm sure you're familiar with rock crawlers. But to take a 6-foot wide rock crawler up a 1 or 2 foot wash, I think is pretty destructive. And the whole goal is to mitigate erosion and repair and rehab damages from the BLM error. So I'm concerned that we're causing new damage. And then the
30
blue
seconds.
the blue outlines are open areas, and the new expanded open area is inviting riders to go into an area that has intact vegetation and biotic crust. So we're going to get a lot of vegetation. We're inviting destruction rather than repairing and restoring it. So it'd be nice if we could have some kind of oversight. There is a study that was done that I think is going to be presented to you at some point, and Open Space has it, and it discusses these issues.
3 minutes.
So hopefully we can discuss it. And thank you. Happy to take anybody out anytime.
Anybody else? Okay.
Well, I've got 2 different things, but I'll just do the easy one. There's been 3 fires over the last 3 summers on Prison Hill.
Your name, please.
I'm sorry. My name is Ron Moe, citizen of Carson City. I do my share of hiking up Prison Hill. Anyway, 3 fires over the last 3 summers. The last one being the lightning fire in the north end. There was one in June 2019. Higher OHV caused, and one June 6th OHV caused next to the entrance, the staging area entrance. And I was out there, and it was after that, and it was the same day the Jacks Valley fire started. And I was just thinking, if that fire would have started that day, it could have very well burned the houses just over to the east from the entrance of the staging area. A simple fix would be a fence going from the corner of the first one over to the staging area, and it would be on the Carson City side. That little area is state property from what I see. But strongly recommended, if there's a fire there and it burns those homes, Carson City would be obligated to pay for that. I'll say also on fencing, plenty of riders are still going. This is on the Prison Hill OHV area. Not staying on the trails or designated trails. And there are riders going over the east side, which drains down to the river. And to stop erosion along that, there needs to be a fence along there to keep them from going anywhere they like. The idea of designated trails and all that isn't cutting it. There's so much erosion in the Prison Hill area, let alone along the washes, which Dick Duford kind of sounded like it wasn't going to be a good idea, but he ended up assigning trails through the washes and the braiding, the erosion coming down from the sides. There used to be, before they came in and promoted all this,
30 seconds.
that there was vegetation in all of those washes. Now it's not like that. Anyway, this idea of rock crawlers and all that, they need to be done away with. They are not pertinent to natural resource protection.
Thank you, Ron. Is there anyone else?
Madam Chairman, I forgot to actually send in the comments. I did them on Friday. I forgot to send them to you. I have a single page for everyone if they want it.
Fine, if you want to pass it out. Okay, while he's passing those out, let's move on to the minutes. Approval of the minutes. Do any members of the board have any discussion or changes to the minutes?
None, I move to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Okay. Discussion and yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to acknowledge that we did receive 4 public comments via email before the meeting. So those were sent out to the committee, included in the agenda, and there are copies on the back table for the public.
Thank you. All right.
Hey, Lindsay, I only got 2. I got Robbins and then I got 1.
Yeah, I got those two too.
I didn't get 4.
Robin sent in several,
Okay,
so
I
that
got you.
accounts for all of
All
them.
right, I got those.
But so-
accident duplicate, because I didn't remind you.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. For possible discussion and possible action regarding the election of a chair and vice chair of the Open Space Advisory Committee. So, nominations. Don't look at me. I was gonna nominate Alan again and somebody else for vice chair. Yeah, why is Alan missed 2 meetings? Do we know?
He didn't say, but he did indicate he would be happy to serve again as the chair if nominated.
Oh, good, he's not here, so. You know what happens if you don't show. Does anyone have any nominations for chair other than Alan? Okay, I nominate Alan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Alan, stuck. No, Alan is chair again. Okay, nominations for vice chair. All right, good. I nominate Mark.
Oh, you're not kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding.
I will second that.
Who's that?
Susan.
Susan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Goody. Now, does Mark take over from me tonight, or do I have to finish?
Madam Chair, I would leave that to your discretion if you want to pass the gavel to.
I'll
Member
finish
Schubert.
tonight.
Okay.
Give him a break.
Excellent.
All right. That's, that, we finished that one, right? Vice Chair, okay. Discussion and possible action regarding the annual monitoring report of Horse Creek Ranch. Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager for Carson City. So we are bringing the annual Horse Creek Ranch monitoring report back to you guys. This is an annual activity. Usually we complete the monitoring in the fall, and then we'll bring the monitoring report to you usually the next meeting or whenever we've completed the report. So our Senior Natural Resource Specialist and I, Georgia Vasey, we completed the monitoring in October of 2021. At that time, the property was in good condition. There was really no change to note from any of the previous years. The erosion and different things that we're monitoring out there remain consistent, which is good. There's no exacerbation of the erosion, kind of just remains the same. So that's good to see. One update to note, so there are new owners of the property. It was sold in 2020, and if you recall, at last year's annual report time, we had indicated that they were planning on doing some development up there within their allowable building envelopes. They were planning on building a residence, a garage, and a watchman's quarters. At this point, they have put those plans on hold. They do still want to move forward with those, but they're having some challenges on their end in terms of the design and everything. So for now, things will just remain status quo up there. So no building to note or plans or anything to bring to the committee, but those will be brought at the time that they're moving forward with those plans. They are moving forward with some electrical lines, so working in conjunction with the neighboring property owners. They're going to be working with Nevada Energy to bring in power to different parts of the ranch. So that will be moving forward. They're going to have above ground power lines on the adjacent neighboring portion, but on the Horse Creek Ranch portion, those are going to be buried. So there won't be any visible power lines or anything like that. So with that, I will take any questions on this report.
Go ahead.
Two quick questions. The first is you mentioned bark beetles coming in and it's not on site but coming from downhill. Have you been in contact with other federal land managers on any thinning projects in that area?
So the Nevada Division of Forestry is very involved in the Horse Creek Ranch as well. They've been out to the property several times. They are going to assist with kind of a stewardship plan out there, and they have plans to do some thinning projects, I believe. So they're definitely involved in keeping a pulse on that.
Okay, great. And then the second question is one of the three items that are identified for potential work is bull thistle removal. And so from the sounds of it in the history, this was something you guys would do kind of as a volunteer organization. My question is, under this agreement for this conservation easement, is it the landowner's responsibility or is this kind of where does this fall?
It's both, because we the city had the technical knowledge and access to groups like Muscle Powered or volunteers. You know, we have our natural resource specialist and we work with weeds all the time. We kind of partnered with them on that project. Certainly the stewardship and land management activities for the ranch ultimately fall upon the landowner, but with assistance from the city wherever we can lend a hand. So the last 2 years, we did not do a volunteer event because of COVID. So we're hoping this year we can start to resume that.
Okay, keep me in the loop when you do so we could get some people out there.
Sure, thank you.
Jennifer?
Thank you. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. Lindsay, is there any involvement with the owner about revegetation activities where the power lines are going to go? So we can manage the weeds coming back after disturbance.
That's a great question. That's not something we discussed specifically, but when that time comes, we'll make sure that we're assisting and making sure that that takes place.
First, I used to do a little cowboying when I was up in Elko County, and I never heard the word loafing. I need to have you to tell me what the heck loafing is. I always associate that with bread.
So in this context, loafing is the area where the cattle are milling about,
Hanging out.
a bedding site, essentially.
That's where that term came from, if you're loafing around, then I guess. Huh? So I just wanted to make one compliment that there's nobody that can ever say that you guys don't do a good job of monitoring these open spaces that we have been able to gather for this community. You guys are on the ball with that. So I just have one question. Do they actively irrigate all those pastures? And do they actively put cows on all those pastures? Or are they use these fence off certain areas and stuff? Do they actively do that?
A good question. So working in conjunction with the Old Woods Ranch, who are directly next door, they bring cattle onto the property every year to graze. That's the cattle in question that are hanging out that belong to Old Woods Ranch. And they are actively irrigating as well. And I believe the Old Woods Ranch manager assists with the irrigation. Since the meadow's connected, they kind of help move water throughout the system.
Because you talked about the flume, I guess it was Neil's ditch or something so I was wondering if if they're irrigating, then somebody's out there cleaning out the flumes in the ditches. And I was just curious, and I should know the answer, do they get access off Highway 50 or do they get access off Kings Canyon or both? But what's the dream?
Both, but because of the state that Kings Canyon Road has been in for the last several years, access that way has been super challenging. Since we've been in the process of reconstructing that road, which will be completed soon, that will be renewed access for them, but primarily the access is off of 50.
And then I had just one comment, but it may not be something you guys might want to do. State parks, for years, we used to have public gathering of firewood, so which was very highly received, and you got some income from it. I didn't know if you ever looked at that if you had a problem if a beetle kill came in or something where people can't drive off the road, but they can roll around and stuff. So it's a way to make money and be steward. If you've ever maybe in the future looked into that possibility. It takes a tree faller though, unless you want to trust them knocking down trees. So you can trust them, but there's a liability with that sometimes. Just a comment, if you haven't enforced, especially if they're beetle kills, because you got to get in there and get those out of there before they infect the next little canyon over and stuff. So just a comment.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good idea, and especially if we start to see some major die-off out there, I could see that being part of our sort of plan that we're working with
Then they
NDF on.
just come in and load it up and haul it away.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Those online, you have anything? No? I will say, having been involved for several times with the bull thistle, it's a lot of fun. How bad is it? Has it gotten really bad?
You know, I was surprised to see after being up there that there wasn't more, having had 2 years off. It could have just been the time of year that we were up there. They tend to be knocked down by that point, but I guess we'll see this spring. Yeah.
I can't wait. But, yeah, and yes, the cattle do loaf.
I'm going to put that in my Facebook and diary when I get home.
Yeah, they lay around in that area and really denude that spot. Well, thank you very much. Good report. Things look pretty good up there from the pictures. I haven't been up there for 2 years. I miss it. I love going up there every year That's the only way you can get up there and visit that property and get on that property is to go do the bull thistle pull. So keep that in mind. Okay, next on the agenda is conservation easement, discussion and possible action regarding the open space work plan for fiscal year 2022, 2023. Again, Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So for the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. So you have before you the open space work plan for fiscal year 22-23. For those of you who are new to the committee, typically every February we'll bring this work plan before you. It's not necessarily an exhaustive list of everything that we're working on, but we try to capture some of our big projects or some of our ongoing projects. So the items that are listed here, some of them are carryover from last year, things that we're wrapping up or continue to work on. Some of them are brand new items, and some of them are things that we will complete on an annual basis. So I won't go through every single item, but I did want to highlight some things that are new, primarily some new grant awards that we've received or that we've applied for. So I think all of you probably are aware by now that we received 2 grants from the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act, one for water rights acquisition at Buzzy's Ranch, and one for the next segment of the Prison Hill Trail on the west side of Prison Hill, starting at Coons Lane. Also noted on the work plan that is kind of an update is we have received funding from the Recreational Trails Program for what we're calling the Desert Peach Trail, which will be a connector from the north end of Prison Hill up to the North Loop. So we're very excited about that. There's also some plans in there. We submitted another grant application to SNPLMA for some work at Riverview Park and the trailhead there to redo that whole trailhead. So you'll notice that as a new item. And then I did want to kind of highlight some ongoing projects. So in the next year, we're going to be continuing to coordinate with the State Historic Preservation Office on our cultural resource review processing and the programmatic agreement. And we hope to make some revisions there that will make things a little bit easier on our end to complete maintenance and things like that. So that will be a continued activity in the next year. Of course, the Prison Hill OHV area remains a property where we spend a lot of time and attention, so that will continue to be a priority for our department. And then, of course, just all the day-to-day ongoing monitoring and those kinds of activities that we do each year. So I'd love to take any specific questions that you guys have about the work plan.
Okay, any questions? Yes.
Yeah, Lindsay, I was just going to ask you, the Desert Peach Trail, are they planning to start construction? Was that going to be finished this year? Or just started?
Great question. I will bring up our trails coordinator, Greg Bergeron, to answer that for you.
Hi, for the record, Greg Bergeron, Trails Coordinator. So the Desert Peach Trail, yeah, we got the Rec Trails Program grant approved for that. The funding won't be released for probably another few months, but as soon as it is, then we'll put the project out for bids for mechanized construction. So it's going to be a rather difficult construct because it's very rocky in there, so it's easier to do a mechanized build than a hand build. But yeah, hopefully we'll get that done this year. That's the plan.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Before you sit down, Greg. This one's directed for you. So I appreciate the explanation you gave me the other day on kind of how the trail system works. And so I was kind of surprised at the cost of what it costs per mile on these trails for single track and whatnot. Do you have a ballpark of how many miles we've been able to complete with grant funding? Because if you don't have that, I think that's something that should really promote that we're able to get this type of work done through grant funding alone to be able to support.
Yeah, I don't have that in my head. We could calculate that because that would go back to even before my time here. There's been a lot of trails that have been completed through grant funding, quite a few miles.
Okay. Because I think that's something we should be really proud of how much work we've gotten done with that grant funding for the different types of trails that are used all over the city.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, grants have enabled us to accomplish a lot. And we've been able to leverage, through open space, Q18 funding, we've been able to leverage a lot more funding for these projects. So very valuable.
I got Juan's comment this afternoon, so I know I read somewhere in the documents, I can't find it in this one now, about the trailhead and then TTD's association now, but it's not in the work plan that I can find. It was in some other document. So is Juan's comment, maybe it's moot because it is being actively pursued, but it isn't in the work program. Is that?
Thank you, Member Kimbrough, for bringing that up. So, yeah, we were under the impression that things had been in communication with other agencies and that there had been some momentum related to that effort, but we want to remain in the loop and in that coordination process. So we're going to go ahead and add it back into our work plan.
There you go, Juan, wherever you're at.
He's in Puerto Rico right now.
Okay.
Anybody, any questions from our two remotes?
No, thank you.
I have one more.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys were really successful in getting the land and water conservation, oops, wrong one. The Buzzy's Ranch, the Southern Nevada Land Management Act, the 694 acre feet, which is a lot of water when you think about it, but you mentioned last time, Lindsay, that it is not enough. So how much more do you guys look to need to get, and do you have a time frame or ballpark estimate of what it's going to take to get to that point?
Yes, great question. Thank you for asking. So related to Buzzy's Ranch, at the time that the property was sold to us, we did not purchase any water rights. They were too expensive, so all we could do at the time was purchase the land with the intention that someday we would be able to acquire those water rights. So in the interim period, we've been working closely with the seller of the property, and they have an exclusive right to utilize that property as long as they have water rights and apply them to the land. So that's worked out well in the last, several years, but we acknowledge that we need to get more water and be independent and, be able to irrigate that property ourselves. So this is a great first step in that process, but as you noted, it's not enough. So this 694 acre feet of water would be allocated to the Ducks Unlimited portion of Buzzy's Ranch, which is, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like 180 acres or something like that. But the ranch total is almost 500 acres. So this is about a third or so of the amount of water that we need. So we've been kicking around a lot of ideas. There are other grant sources that we could apply for, like land and water, but they do require a one-to-one match, which can be hard. So we're also in communication with Vidler Water Company, who is the entity we would actually be purchasing this water from for the purposes of the SNPLMA grant. And the hope is that we can enter into some sort of long-term lease to buy with them so that we can acquire all the water that we need. There are also potentially options to do a phase 2 with SNPLMA if we're really successful here and they get on board, with the vision that we're trying to implement. They may be interested in funding another water rights acquisition. There's also another funding source coming down the pipe, kind of similar to the Q1 grant program that was operational back in the 2000s. There's a similar grant source kind of coming back around, and that will be an opportunity to acquire water as well. So whether it's through grants or a lease to buy or both, we have a plan in place. We've been working with consultants over the last couple years to develop a conservation plan that would outline not only how much water we need for the property to fully irrigate it, but other contingency plans to restore portions of it so that we don't need as much water. So we kind of have 3 or so parallel projects going at once so we can make sure that we get the water we need.
I do have one question for Greg. I've heard through the grapevine, I've got a lot of sources, that the Odyssey trail work got stopped for a month.
So we received, recently we completed Section 106 cultural surveys. We received concurrence from SHPO, a document giving us concurrence from SHPO. But so Muscle Power went ahead and started, they built a few feet of the trail, and then we were contacted by the State Historic Preservation Office that they requested that our consultant do an update to a database. And so since we re-entered the process, we decided we better halt the work temporarily. That's not going to affect the final concurrence from SHPO. It's just a crossing a T or dotting an I or whatever. So until he gets that into the database, and it was completed, and we should have our final letter back from SHPO again this week. So we'll be able to re-begin construction as early as next week, I hope. Okay.
And the Desert Peach, is that kind of the trail that social trail that's been there to connect up to the top that I love?
I've heard that a lot of people love that old social trail that has grades of in excess of 20%. Yeah, I wouldn't ride it on my mountain bike, but yeah, it's we're not going to decommission the old trail because we have so many people that do like that. There's some people that like that downhill run on their bikes, but the new trail will be have a sustainable trail with sustainable grades of like 6 to 8%. So a much more within the standards that we like to build trails. Much more easy hike than the old social trail.
It's going to be kind of on the east side there?
It's going to zigzag. It's going to cross. It's going to start at the top of the three loop trails, sagebrush, bitterbrush, and rabbit brush. And then it will kind of zigzag across the north side of the hill, so it'll hit both the west and the east sides. It's
Okay.
going to have awesome views and make a great connection to the North Loop, which desperately needs a good connection because that North Loop is very popular.
Okay, the next thing, what is that rock structure that's been built up at the top of, what is it, Bitterbrush? It's like this big around and almost as tall as me, and who built that thing? And
I don't know. There's that's not the only one on Prison Hill. There are people with some time on their hands that like to gather up rocks and pile them in a pile, and I don't know what that is.
are we going to decommission these things?
We've talked about it and, maybe at some point, but with all the staff priorities we have right now, dismantling labyrinths is probably not our highest priority.
Thank you. It's, you said it's not the complete, but it is exhaustive. It sounds exhaustive to me. Thank you. You guys do a lot of work and a lot of beautiful work, and thank you very much. We wouldn't have the community that we have today if it wasn't for all the work that our staff puts in. Thank you very much. All right. Discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on the fiscal year open space budget. The bad stuff.
Madam Chair, Ben Johnson, Senior Deputy District Attorney for the record. That last item was an action item. So if you just wanted to take a motion to either accept or reject the report.
My error. Does anyone want to move to accept the report?
I make motion to accept the open space work plan for fiscal year 22-23.
Can we add the
Do we need to add
trailhead at the state trail? I can't think of the terms. I'm lost here.
the Clear Creek?
Yeah,
Clear Creek, yep.
the Clear Creek Trailhead.
Would that be okay? Okay. I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Approved. Okay, now on to the budget. Lindsay again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. So similar to the work plan, we usually bring the budget to the committee about this time for your recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Generally, the budget activities for the board happens in April. So just want to provide a little bit of background on how the open space budget works, since we have some new committee members. So as you know, we get funding from the Quality of Life Initiative that was passed in 1996, that sales tax. That money goes into the Quality of Life open space account, as well as several other accounts, because it is divvied up between several divisions within our department. And with that money, we have what's called a bottom line budget. So essentially, any unspent funds from the fiscal year just roll over into an undesignated account, and that just gets captured and kind of rolled over from year to year. And we use that undesignated account as sort of a catch-all. So if we have a certain line item where things go over, we can take money out of the undesignated. It also serves as sort of our fund. So if we were to have a recession or something like that, we have a reserve to pull from to support staff and ongoing projects. If we have an acquisition that were to arise, we would take funds out of there. So it ends up being a bit of a catch-all. And then you probably noticed in this item, we have a budget that we've put together that shows where we're spending the rest of our money. So a few things that I wanted to note that are new this year. So you noted here in red, we are going to be requesting 2 new positions, full-time positions to add to our staff. One of them is going to be a full-time open space maintenance worker. So right now we just have Jared Whitaker, our open space maintenance coordinator, and we have a seasonal that we have in the summer, and then we also have a Silver Saddle Ranch caretaker, and they're responsible for taking care of things out at the ranch, but that's a part-time position as well. So for the management of 7,000 acres, we have 1 full-time person and a couple half-time people, as well as Greg, Georgia, and I to assist in that management. So we definitely have the need to bring on some more full-time staff. So we're very excited for this request. It's been a long time coming, especially now that we're really transitioning into management mode and moving away from an emphasis on acquisitions. We really need to get more staff in so that we can be managing the lands at the level that we would like to. So we're excited to bring on that full-time maintenance worker. These positions, if approved by the board, would be brought on starting at the new fiscal year, so after July 1st. So that's just around the corner. In addition to the open space maintenance worker, we're also proposing to bring on a full-time volunteer coordinator. They would assist throughout the department, but there would be certainly a heavy emphasis in open space, since that's where a lot of our volunteer projects occur. So this would be funded both in coordination with open space as well as the Parks General Fund, using some of the money that we've used to support our AmeriCorps members that would transition into supporting this volunteer coordinator. So the numbers you have here in this budget, they're definitely kind of ballpark numbers, especially as it relates to the benefit package. That can be super variable. So we kind of just included a best estimate at the top level of that. So those are those 2 new positions. Other things that are new in this budget, because we have that bottom line budget, we don't mess around with our categories a whole lot, but I did want to note that under the professional services line item, I did increase that by $50,000 because we have allocated $50,000 in match for our Buzzy's Ranch water rights acquisition project. That would support a few studies and reports that will be needed to provide the grantor so we can move forward with that project. And then as we're bringing on staff, we know that we need to bring on or bring them up to speed with uniforms and things like that. So I did increase our uniform budget because in the past we've kind of just had a hodgepodge group of stuff. So those are the 2 biggest items with our account numbers. And then you'll notice under machinery and equipment, we are proposing that we make some pretty big purchases of equipment this year. These are also noted in one of your exhibits, has the capital improvement project request for the entire department. But just to give you a snapshot, we are requesting to purchase a new Bobcat that would replace the current Toolcat that we use. It's kind of an all-purpose tool. We use it for installing signs, fences. It is helpful for snow removal. It has all kinds of different attachments, can be used to maintain trails and things like that. So that's a really versatile tool. Because it can be used for so much, we are going to be splitting that cost with parks. So that's a 50-50. Similarly, we're requesting to purchase a mini excavator. This would be used for a variety of projects as well, especially some of the erosion control and trail work that we've done out at Prison Hill. That's another one that would be a 50-50 match. And then we're also requesting a UTV and a trailer for our park ranger team. So this would enable them to go into remote areas like Carson River Canyon and the Prison Hill OHV area, and would increase our ability to do patrols and just have a better presence out on the hill, especially in these remote areas. So those are the few items there. Speaking to just some of the other exhibits that you have in your packet, I mentioned the capital improvement project list for the whole department. We also have the organizational chart that includes those 2 new positions that I mentioned. And then I know we have some members on the committee who are super budget minded. So I did include in Exhibit B kind of just a more intensive breakdown of our accounts and our costs, and it includes some actuals from fiscal year 22, so you can see how money's been spent previously. So I included that to just provide you guys with a little bit more information. So with that, I will take any questions.
Any questions?
I have a few.
All right, Mark, go for it.
Okay. First, my first question is this, I'm not familiar with the budget process. So has this been vetted by like the city manager and things, or is this just the beginning, bringing it forward, or is this kind of already been vetted to the Board of Supervisors kind of deal? Where are we at?
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. That's a great question. We're sort of right in the middle of the budget process right now. So we have already submitted our capital improvement project requests, that's the summary that you have in your packet there. And then for the capital side of things, we'll have a capital workshop with all the directors, the city manager, and the deputy city manager, and we'll basically plead our case for the money. We'll talk with the finance director, what's available. Open space is great because we have dedicated funding. We don't typically have to fight with, the sheriff and everybody else. The park side of the house, not so much. So we have to, have a lot of compromises. So we've already, at least as far as the department goes, we've already prioritized as a team with all of our managers what's the most important, purchase for equipment, for capital, down to the bottom one. So we know, what our plan is moving forward. Then we have what we call supplemental requests, and that's the process. We're actually turning all of those in this Friday, and that's where we request any service and supply changes or any staffing needs. So that's where we're right in the middle of that right now. So any, guidance or suggestions or support from this group really will be helpful so we can get those ideas submitted by Friday.
So there's still a chance for discussion essentially about everything here still a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Well, then-
and then I believe it's going to be it's tentatively, but the second Board of Supervisors meeting in April is typically when they'll approve the tentative budget. So if, for the staffing requests we have here, if the Board of Supervisors approves that, we can finalize job descriptions then and actually start advertising those positions, and then we just wouldn't bring them on until the beginning of the fiscal year, which was July 1st. But we can get ahead of it because the board will have essentially approved that budget.
Well, my first questions had to do with the full-time positions, and you guys have a rare opportunity, and I like to be in the room when the discussions happen, but the percentage of who pays for what, because one of the problems when you have a source of money is that the other agencies look at that as maybe an opportunity for their benefit. So you have quite the discussion there of 30, 40, 50% to the parks and 50% open space. So one of the things that I addressed early when open space was first running is you got to be careful adding full-time positions, and then your money starts disappearing and you got more staff, and all of a sudden you've got a lot of staff. And that's not uncommon to happen in systems that people want more staff because they can do more work and they do these things. So usually you have if you're going to put a new maintenance worker on, you'd have a two-page report of all the new facilities, all of the new roads, the square feet of this, how many posts you put in. You have this whole thing so that when the Board of Supervisors, which usually fight, those are the people who usually fight new positions, but you guys have this funding source that probably takes them out of the fight, which is pretty cool. The state parks went through the state legislature for a new position and lots of discussion and fights over additions. So that this is much more easier for you guys, I think, to get in, but I assume you guys have done your homework and have showed this need that the volunteer coordinator, how many hours that they can do and what that brings to them, which isn't part of this package. But so that's a question, but also more than that. So that loaded that up a little bit. Maybe we respond to that. Huh?
That's part of that supplemental packet that we'll submit to finance on Friday. We'll have all that
figured.
justification. So these are bullet items on your paper, but they're going to have, each of them will have a supporting document that goes to finance to justify that position, estimate any services and supplies. Does that person need a computer? Does it need uniforms?
Right.
Does, all the things that go with it. Why do you need that?
Car.
What are they going to do? Lindsay's been great. She's already been working with HR for quite a while now, working on draft job descriptions, making sure that they're crossing, all the T's and dotting the I's, and make sure on the HR side of things that they're happy with it. So we're, about 90% there. We're about ready to go, but we'll make sure everything gets in on Friday.
Who puts the 50% deal in? Who gets to fight for that little piece of it? You wear both hats, so you're talking to yourself. Which hat have you got on? And you sit on the other side, you got your Park and Rec hat, and then you go put your open space hat on.
Parks and Rec and open space all get along, so we're good.
I think it's so unique and so cool that can happen, but you're always aware of too much staff, and then start taking too much of your operating money away, so.
The park side of things, I'll be really honest, we've been successful the last few years getting additional staff, trying to add back since the recession. But you have to have a strategy, and we're very lucky because we do have other funds, not just open space, that we can bill our time to. For parks, like we have a landscape maintenance district in Schultz Ranch, and obviously staff does have to spend time out there. We can bill some time to that. We have other categories in quality of life. We have redevelopment, and there's a lot of other areas. So we have to try to not just open our hat and say, hey, general fund, give us more staff. We have to try to really bill people's time where they're spending it. So it's a whole strategy. It's a little bit exhaustive on the park side of things, but we do share equipment costs, and I think that's really getting us further. We're getting a much better equipment fleet and rolling stock as a department because now we're sharing costs and not putting that all on one side of the house.
See, this is a rehearsal for you for when the Board of
Thanks,
Supervisors asks you
Mark.
same
Yeah.
questions. So I'm really excited to see this. I don't have any trouble with any of those positions. It's nice to know the process because that's our job, is oversight of your budgets, right in the, whatever that's called, the rules for this board is to have that opportunity. So I'm going to move from positions. So that, and you answered, I was going to say the volunteer coordinator, they're going to work with parks too, and you said they're going to do a percentage. It just isn't in this package that you guys.
That $10,000 that
That the
we
piece?
used to have, it's from the general fund. So it's in general fund administration right now in the department. That $10,000 would be allocated toward the volunteer coordinator. So it would be a shared cost position. We just don't know the exact percentage because we don't know what benefit package that person would pick. And it really has about a $15,000 to $25,000 variable if they have a family where they're all on their benefit package, so it's a real rough guesstimate right now.
Well, in their first year, you got to add maybe vehicle, office, computers, all their tools and weapons.
Their first year is always a
Yeah.
little bit more
So
expensive.
then after that, it's different. Okay, well, thank you for that. So my next comments were about the equipment that you had in there. It's not anything negative. I assume the Bobcat, and you answered part of that. I was going to say, I would hope that has a sweeper. I hope it has a post hole digger. It has the masticator. It should have a blower. I mean, all those things hopefully come with that Bobcat, so that it's much more than just a Bobcat.
I can't speak to the names of all the specific attachments. However, there are several, and I can think of at least 3 off the top of my head that we use on a regular basis. So
Well,
it's
yeah.
a very versatile tool.
You may or may not have a masticator, but sometimes if you're working on, somebody addressed that tonight about putting a fire line in somewhere, if it's all sagebrush, a masticator is nice to have, but
We have
most of the fire
access to a
department.
masticator
Oh, you
if
have
we
one?
need
Oh,
it.
cool, okay. And then the mini excavator, I'm assuming Greg is going to learn how to build trail with that and become competition for his clients to build trails for him, which won't make their day. But, I mean, there's a skill set with that. So I'm hoping that mini excavator had to do with not only maintenance, but for development too. So is that the goal?
Right now, our maintenance coordinator, Jared Whitaker, is a very skilled equipment operator, and he can operate a Mini X, I'm sure, quite skillfully.
Good. That's a wonderful piece of equipment for a trail organization to have a mini excavator of their own. So I think that's all I think I was going to pick on you guys for. And thank you for that and the opportunity to review and look at these things. And let the public know what it takes to run an open space program to make you as successful as you guys are today. Thank you.
I'd like to add something, so I'll back off of continue off the equipment. I think I asked you this the other day and I can't remember. Is this equipment new purchases to replace existing equipment, or is this to add to the fleet for the additional work that is going to be done over the next few years?
Both. So the Mini X is a new piece of equipment. The UTV that the Rangers would use in the trailer, that's new. And then the Bobcat would be to replace our existing Toolcat that we use for a variety of projects. But that Toolcat, while it's reaching the end of its life, won't be put out to pasture quite yet. So we'll have two tools at our dispense.
Okay. And then the second thing is more of a comment. I highly agree with you guys and recommend if you get more FTE than just what you're even going for, maybe not this round, but the next one, because if you guys could look at the amount of money you've brought in the last few years, it's great to bring in a ton of money to get a lot of work done, but if you don't have the people to actually manage it and get the projects done, it's just going to sit there. So we're obviously getting a lot more projects done, a lot more trails, a lot more new parking areas and whatnot that are going to need maintenance. So I think you guys are doing a great job with getting what you can starting. And of course, I understand the game. I know it very well on the state side. So good job doing that.
I just want to jump in on that. So I think right now we're trying to do a combination of contractual services and adding FTEs at the same time and trying to stay in a couple different lanes so we can spread the wealth. We want to help support, local businesses, and we recognize that we need, professional services quite a bit. But we also don't want to get so many FTEs, like Mark mentioned, that where if we did start to having a downturn in the economy, that we wouldn't be able to afford those staff. So we're kind of going on a parallel path, but we recognize we need more help. I think we all agree. And we're really hoping the volunteer coordinator, if you don't realize, if you have a really good volunteer coordinator, it really creates a robust labor force and people that can be engaged and help. We have a ton of volunteers now, but I think we can have so much more and more regular volunteers as well. So I see that as a support. Typically, we used to have inmates and be able to have that opportunity for inmates, but that's just been a real challenge. And now that the state just really doesn't have a lot of staff in corrections to even really manage that program, I don't see us getting inmates anytime soon. So I see the volunteer coordinators hopefully supplementing that labor force too.
May I ask a question about the inmates? This is Christine.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was actually going to ask, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask about that inmate issue there. When I saw that there were only basically 2 inmates budgeted, that's less than past years, I assume. And that is because of what you just said about difficulty in getting inmate labor now because of COVID and other constraints. Is that right?
That's correct. So we have an agreement with the State Department of Corrections. We actually typically receive 20 full-time equivalents on a regular basis for the department. And then we can use portion of those inmates typically for open space and other areas. But with COVID, we haven't had any inmates the entire time during COVID. And then with the staff issues at corrections, the ability to even get 1 or 2 inmates at all is just not possible right now. We hope to get the inmate program back, but it's just not realistic right now based on the constraints at the state. But we do have an active agreement with the state. So should that be able to come back, we have the mechanism in place to be able to take that on.
Okay, thank you for that. And what is what is that oversight that's needed at the prison? I mean, do they need to have a prison employee be with them the entire time? Is that how that is? Is that the constraint there?
There's a whole process to be able to get inmates. We have to submit paperwork and background checks on our staff, and then they have an internal process they have to go to and review, and then they release them to us. So we would go and pick them up at the prison and then bring them back, and we have an inmate van that we have, and we have a whole process, but they just don't even have the capacity, my understanding is right now, to be able to release them right now. So once they're more comfortable and have the staffing to be able to do that, then we'll definitely be able to pursue that. But right now, at this time, we've been told they don't have the capacity to provide any. But we do have the current agreement, and we'll be ready when they are.
Okay, and then the last question was regarding the volunteer coordinator, because you mentioned that you're hoping for that coordinator, if hired, would be able to help take up some of the slack and provide some additional labor. I just noticed that it was an AmeriCorps allocation. Do you guys already have a grant for AmeriCorps to subsidize positions in general? Or is this going to be recruited? Will volunteers be recruited through a AmeriCorps program? I'm not sure.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. So currently, sort of the volunteer program that we have now and have had in the past has been through AmeriCorps. So AmeriCorps, if you're not familiar, is a volunteer organization, basically. They recruit recent graduates or folks who want to get involved in the conservation field to come do a term of service with an agency, and they'll learn how the agency works and provide that service for a certain amount of time. So in the past, we have gotten money from the general fund to have a year-long AmeriCorps Vista position, and we've had 3 of those, I believe, since its inception in the volunteer coordinator specific position. And so their job has been to build the volunteer program for our department, recruit volunteers, create programming, manage those programs, do all the things that we would want our full-time volunteer coordinator to do, but it's for a specific amount of time. So a year or sometimes a little bit less. So that's led to challenges in terms of kind of building up a program, and then we lose that staff person and we don't have someone who can actively manage it and maintain it. And so then we kind of lose traction, and we're constantly having to rebuild that and kind of get back to where we were when the person previously ended. So that's one reason why we really feel like this full-time position is going to get us where we need, because we need someone who can consistently manage this throughout the year and not have any lulls in our dedication to the program.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I have a question. This is Susan
yeah.
Martinovich. So one of the things that I guess I have the benefit of is I go back and look at last year's budget. I was, had the honor of being on the committee then. And so I just need a little bit of clarification on the numbers, comparing the last year's to this year. It said, so last year when we talked about the budget, we said that we would have an anticipated estimated sales tax revenue of roughly $1,165,416. And then the beginning of this says that for the same fiscal year, it's 1.5 million. What's the difference? Is the 1,524,770 the actual amount of revenue that came in, and so the budget for 2021-22 was utilized that new number?
Great question. So to clarify, at this point in the budget process, when we're bringing these numbers to you, especially in terms of the anticipated revenue for the quality of life account, we don't know what that's going to be, so we're projecting and giving our best guess. And then once the numbers come in, we're able to kind of provide the more accurate, what was actually brought in. So that's the reason why there's a discrepancy in those two numbers.
And the projection.
Is there something maybe?
The projection's from finance, so that's not a departmental projection. That's from finance. So based
Okay.
on sales tax trends and all of the projections that she provides for the whole city budget.
Is there something that shows a little bit of history of what we projected the budgets to be and actually what the actual numbers are that come in every year, just to see, are we seeing growth? Are we seeing up and down a little bit in that regard?
We are seeing a lot of growth, and we can actually send this to you tomorrow, but Lindsay and I got a great spreadsheet with an overview of the Quality of Life Fund for the last 25 years, as we just had the Quality of Life celebration. And we wanted to have some statistics about how much, revenue over time has this program generated and what is the growth. And it's significantly growing every year. So we can provide that to you, and it won't show what the projections were, but it'll show the actuals over time, if that's helpful.
Perfect, great. Yeah. And then in last year's budget, you increased the Silver Saddle Ranch caretaker to increase their hours. And this is just more of a question. Has that been successful? So they're still part-time, but they're able to do more. Is that enough? So are we seeing success with that, or do we need to consider more?
Great question. Thank you. So with the Silver Saddle Ranch caretaker, one reason that we increased the hours is previously that position was pretty much responsible for opening and closing gates, maybe collecting some trash or doing a project here or there. That was really their primary duty. When we brought on the Prison Hill East Trail and made improvements to the Prison Hill Fish Street Trailhead, we realized there were some more duties kind of in that general region, that side of town, bathroom cleaning, that sort of thing. So we increased the hours so that person could actually cover more than one site. So Silver Saddle Ranch caretaker is actually a bit of a misnomer because they're kind of caring for that whole east side at this point. One new development is we've been working on an automatic gate for the Silver Saddle Ranch complex. It's taken us some time to get that in place, but that should be operational probably in the next few months. So that's going to take away the open and closing requirements of that position. And so we might actually be looking at reducing those hours back down or kind of diverting their attention onto other projects. But they'll still be out at Silver Saddle and Prison Hill East and the Fifth Street Trailhead.
Okay. Those were the questions I had. Thank you very much.
Mark, you had more.
I got one. I wrote it down and then I went right over the top of it. Speaking of metrics and explanations of use and demand, and I was just curious if you ever put in trail counters in the proposals. Are not that expensive, and a couple of them, and they can actually determine mountain bikes, metal going over them, and Rim Trail used them, and they're hugely important for the metrics of a nonprofit. So that justifies and it shows the use like at Waterfall, when you might get blown away by the numbers if you put those in. So has that ever been a part of it, or is there a chance still to stick them in for you, a couple of them? And
Yeah, for the record, Greg Berger and Trails Coordinator, absolutely. We have trail counters on a number of our trails. We had a trail counter on the Waterfall Trail until the construction started.
So you already
and
got
of course,
it?
that was some pretty high numbers, pretty significant. But our numbers, like for the Prison Hill Trail East, Buzzy's Ranch Trail, and Mexican Dish Trails, some of those are seeing like 4,000 people a month, or 4,000 counts a month. That could be one person 2 times, but yeah, so we're seeing some pretty significant numbers on some of these trails.
I didn't know you had the counters. That was a moot point. Thank you. Maybe I've seen the metrics too. And
Anything else? Okay, do I have a motion to, I lost my screen. To recommend to the Board of Supervisors the budget for fiscal year 2022-23 as presented.
I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors the budget for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 as presented.
Any second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it's approved. And where are we? Okay, we're doing pretty good here. Discussion and possible action regarding, we did that one. Discussion and possible action regarding whether to submit a letter of support for the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program, RTCA grant, to update the Carson River Master Plan. Lindsay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager. So this item was brought to us by Member Kimbrough. He had been in the process of digitizing our Carson River Master Plan because we only had it in analog form, and so he was very gracious in taking on that project. And so through that process, looking at the plan that was completed in 1996, he realized and brought to my attention that, most of the items that were in that plan have since come to fruition. A lot of it was acquisition focused and, kind of getting the whole river corridor protected and preserved and under the management of Carson City, which we have since done. And so, in the spirit of not letting our plans just die on the shelf, we're definitely overdue for an update of the Carson River Master Plan and really focusing it on management of the Carson River corridor and keying in on some really specific projects that that need to be captured so that we make sure that they happen for the benefit of the river and our community. So things like BMPs that need to be in place in certain areas where we're seeing a lot of erosion. There's always sort of recreation management that we're working on, especially as it relates to the aquatic trail and the 5 miles of continuous river trail that we have in that area. So between sort of recreation, the natural resource element, we're just overdue for really updating this plan. So he brought to my attention the National Park Service Rivers, Trails, and Conservation Assistance Program. So this is not a grant sort of funding program. This is a technical assistance program. So what's great about this is the National Park Service will bring in folks who are super qualified, and they help with this whole planning process. They'll help coordinate with stakeholders. They'll help identify projects and priorities. They do all the coordination. They help write the plan. So it's a really good resource for staff, especially busy staff who might not be able to take this on by themselves. We also have worked with this grant program in the past. So the Silver Saddle Ranch charrette process was done through this grant program. We have had sort of dealings with it related to the V&T Rails to Trails project that Member Inverson is working on. So we definitely know that this program works and has worked in our community and neighboring communities. So this item tonight is to sign off on a letter of support, basically saying that the Open Space Advisory Committee is on board with this mission. You guys would be brought in as a stakeholder in this process. I do have a draft letter for you guys to sign if we vote that way. So with that, I will take any questions or if Member Kimbrough wants to jump in with any additional information since he's the one writing the grant application.
The only thing I would add is that we've already approached Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District. They're going to be a major player. They're the resource side. We've contacted BLM. They're actually sent an email today thanking us for letting them be a part of this process. RCI has signed on to support this. Muscle Powered has a letter that supports. So we've already got the major key players involved with this with a letter of support, which enhances our chance to get this grant considerably. I think hopefully it has a high success for this. That's the only point I'd make is that we already pretty well signed on a lot of team players for this.
I just wanted to ask, I'm sure that you're aware, I think it sounds like we have everything ready to roll because it's due tomorrow. So
That was a question. Yes, we've been working on this for the last month, and by we I mean Mark mainly, the royal we. But Mark's been huge help in putting this grant application together and running down stakeholders and letting them know that this is happening and getting them on board. Letter of support, really all of it's been Mark. So I don't want to speak for Mark, but I think we're ready to rock tomorrow. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Lindsay.
Any other questions about it? I can tell you, having just worked with them for the last 4 years through the historic Virginia and Truckee Trail, it was an interesting 4 years because in the process, we had a government shutdown, COVID, our program representative quit. The new one we got was pregnant and went on maternity leave. So we had an interesting, but it still is very helpful. And the current program manager that you'll get, Kristen Van Fleet, is adorable, and she's very helpful. But yeah, they helped, and in the last 4 years, we went with the historic V&T Trail from a concept to a 501c3 and 30 miles of trail built. So it works, so it's well worth the effort to work with them. And it's through the National Park Services. So yes, I definitely recommend it. So does anyone want to make a motion? Why don't you, Mark?
I'm not making any money on it, so there's no conflict.
No conflict of interest. Nobody makes any money
That's
on this. It's all work,
I mean,
no fun.
I don't have I move to approve the letter of,
Approve submission of a letter of support
There
for
you go.
NPS RTCA grant as presented.
there we go.
I'll second it. I think I can do that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Madam
Any?
Chair,
Yes.
just a comment, and I know Mark knows this because he writes a lot of grants and writes them very well. Just with the focus of the current administration, and I would just suggest using words like community enhancement and community development and even sustainability, resilience on what this will help do. It just, that's the mode. I'm in DC tonight to hear all of this. And so it's just a lot of the mode of what helps keep things moving forward and helps give us a better chance. So, but Mark, you write awesome grants, so you got it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so it's approved. Moving forward, what's the next thing? Staff updates. Trails report. Right.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Greg Berger, Trails Coordinator. So we've got a lot going on in the trails front. Capital, the Tahoe and Lincoln Bypass Trails, we muscle-powered between their handwork and grant funding for mechanized construction. They have essentially completed the Lincoln Bypass Trail. That's a 4.4-mile trail. They've still got a little bit of finish work to do this spring, but once that opens up after the snow melts, it's going to be an awesome hike or awesome ride. And then the Capital to Tahoe Trail, that muscle power was able to stage the bridge building materials just before the snow fell this fall, and so those materials are overwintering up there waiting for assembly as soon as they can get back up there. And then we also recently obtained an easement on the Mansfield property, which will enable us to do a much better alignment for a segment of the trail. And together, the two trails with Lincoln Bypass and Cap to Tahoe will add over 13 miles of trail to Carson City. We're hoping, if all goes well this summer and fall, that we can actually get Cap to Tahoe completed. And that would be an awesome trail to open up with connections to the basin. So the Kings Canyon Trailhead project, we had scheduled completion of that in mid-November. There's been a number of delays, but we're waiting to resume work as soon as conditions are amenable to that, and we should have that open probably in the next couple of months. And just to add, we're planning on hosting our National Trails Day June 4th event at the Kings Canyon Trailhead this year. So we'll get invites out for that. Prison Hill non-motorized trails, we pretty much covered that already. Where we are with our Section 106 cultural surveys and the Odyssey Trail and the Desert Peach Trail. The Odyssey Trail, just for those of you who aren't familiar, that will create another connection to the North Loop from the Coons Lane Trailhead, which is actually probably our most, well, until we built the Fifth Street Trailhead, that was our most popular trailhead. So now we're going to have connections to the North Loop from both of our popular trailheads on Prison Hill, and those will be sustainable connections with reasonable grades, and should be great additions to our trail system there. And also we expect the Desert Peach Trail to be completed this summer, we hope, and then the Odyssey Trail with a connection to the North Loop should be completed this summer as well, and then it will continue on next year with connections to the Dead Truck Canyon Trail. Carson River Trails Phase 2 Ranch Connection. So that was one of our SNPLMA-funded grants that completed the Prison Hill Trail East, the Mexican Dish Trail Extension, and Buzzy's Ranch Trail. That project is completed now with the placement of 3 interpretive signs, and we're working on closing that grant out. We've got photos of our interpretive signs. The first one has a photo with Kaylee Maples, who was our recreation intern last summer. She developed the artwork for that one, and it shows the wingspans of various birds that are common on the Carson River. We also placed Birds of the Carson River, which highlights, that panel highlights Carson River as significant bird habitat, discusses our annual bird surveys conducted by the open space staff. It offers suggestions for bird watching and lists common birds that may be observed nearby. And then the third panel that we placed is the history of ranching in Eagle Valley, and that one identifies the historical farm implements that were present near the trail when we constructed it. And then it also discusses the history of ranching and farming in the Eagle Valley, beginning with the early cultivations by the Washoe people and concluding with preservation of pretty much our last remaining ranch lands in Eagle Valley by the Open Space Division. And then Carson River Trails Phase 3. This will be a continuation of our project in the Carson River Prison Hill area. We received the grant from SNPLMA for that. We're waiting on, in my recap, I said that we would have the funding available February 1st, but it looks like there may be just a few more weeks, but that's going to be funded very soon, and that will complete or rebuild of the Coons Lane Trailhead so that it looks more similar to the Fifth Street Trailhead with vault toilet, parking for trailers, parking for more vehicles, fenced parking area, ADA compliant access, and it will also include enhancements to the crossing of Edmonds Drive at Coons Lane, safety improvements there, and then it will construct 2.5 miles of trail along the west side of Prison Hill. And this will be a continuation of an accessible trail that will circumnavigate Prison Hill. And by accessible, I mean a trail that is accessible to everybody, persons, families with small children, persons with disabilities. That's a goal of ours, is to make as many trails as we can accessible to as many people as to as much of our population as we can. And then Carson River Trails Phase 4 Riverview Trailhead. That is a grant that we applied for, a SNPLMA grant that we applied for, that will continue our work in that area, and that would completely remake the trailhead at the end of Fifth Street by the Korean War Memorial. Completely redo that trailhead, re-renovate it. We would include drainage improvements, low maintenance landscaping, enhanced accessibility, provide for an approved location to host small events like ranger and natural sled programs. And the first review of our grant by the state's diploma, we were ranked second in the state. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to get that one as well. And we'll know about that probably this fall sometime. And then Prison Hill OHV area, our work continues down there. New trail construction and reconstruction, drainage improvements, filters or gatekeepers for the crawler routes, additional wayfinding signage. When we're done with the work that we'll be completing this spring and summer, we will have put in 79 erosion control structures, including 34 check dams, 5 containment dams, and 40 drains. We'll have completed 16 segments or 1.7 miles of new sustainable routes, 13 segments or 2.2 miles of reconstructed routes, and 13 route segments or 0.07 miles of closed and rehabilitated routes. And when I say rehabilitated, we're ripping, vertical mulching, and reseeding. And as a photo, or the two photos here in the report show one area. A photo was taken on January 13th, and you can see the impacts. And then just a few days later, January 29th, when we ripped, vertical mulched, and reseeded, it looks significantly different. And there's, at the end of my report, there's an attachment with some more information about the project and what's been going on down there. Some of our challenges, it's a challenging area to work in and to manage, and some of that has been brought up tonight. It needs a lot of constant attention. That's why, one of the requests for the UTV, for the Rangers, so they can have a bigger presence, additional maintenance staff. That area requires monitoring the signs, the wayfinding signage, and replacing and fixing as needed. It requires monitoring for routes that get not built, but new routes that get created by users that we need to mitigate. And so it does need a lot of attention. But overall, we've seen some big changes. We don't have, a few years ago before we started the project, there were a number of dump sites. We don't see dumping anymore. There's no more graffiti, and we have user groups that are involved in volunteer projects down there. So we're seeing, I think, quite a bit of progress for the better in that area. And when we talk about volunteers, my last bullet point shows the volunteer projects that we had in 2021 that were directly related to trails in Carson City. Number of projects. National Trails Day, we had the Great Basin Institute came out with, I think, about 40 people, and we did 233 hours of volunteer labor just on that National Trails Day. And then we had National Public Lands Day, Muscle Powered's Trash Mob throughout the year, events on Prison Hill. We have an Adopt-A-Trail program where we have a few trails adopted out, and if we get a volunteer coordinator, we're hoping we can really push that hard and adopt out a lot more trails for routine trash pickup and maintenance. River Wranglers, the V&T Trail Bench and Sign Project, and then Muscle Powered. It can't be understated the work that their trail crews put in on trails every year. And last year, even with all the smoke, which, the summer was a very, very difficult time to even try to schedule work, but they still were able to contribute almost 3,000 hours of volunteer time towards trail building and maintenance. And I can't thank Muscle Powered enough for all that they do. Lastly, I want to mention or follow up on Member Kimbrough's comment about trail counters. So we've had some information or some data that I've supplied on previous reports, but I'll be sure in the coming year to put some data in there so you can look at some of the counts that we have on some of the trails. And with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Questions? I know you
A
have
question.
questions, Mark. Hi,
Madam Chair, this is Christine.
Christine, we'll start with you.
Hi. Yeah, I'm never gonna do a remote again if I can avoid it. I love that report. Thank you so much, Greg. And I just had an impromptu suggestion with respect to trail counts. It'd be kind of cool to be able to provide that on internet, on social media or something, just to count so that the public, if they surf in or out into the Parks and Rec Department, whatever social media presence you have, to put that in there, put a summary at the end of the month or show graphs showing the growth in trail access over time, before and after improvements, all that stuff. That's all, just a
Sure.
to consider for the future.
Great suggestion.
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick questions. I think it was was it the porta potty that hadn't showed up for the Kings Canyon trailhead? Was it the bathroom that?
It's, yeah, not a porta potty, but a vault toilet.
A vault
And,
toilet.
And so are you asking about what some of the issues were that have delayed the project?
No, I'm
or-
asking you, is the vault toilet here?
It's not here, but I think the contractor will be scheduling placement probably in the next few weeks.
Excellent. And the other thing, I know it's not on the agenda for this coming fiscal year, but again, I just want to bring up the importance of starting to think about having maybe a vault toilet around Pooh Corner area.
Yeah, and that's a discussion that we've had we're completing, of course, the Kings Canyon trailhead, but the west side of town desperately needs a really good substantial trailhead for the Ash Canyon area. And that's a challenge because, for example, where we have a little bit of parking now by the water tanks, but that's state land. And then the approach to the Ash Canyon water tanks area is Carson City open space, but it's deed restricted. We can't build a trailhead there. So it's a challenge trying to find a location to put one for Ash Canyon. It's something that we're all working on and spending some time on. And we would like to, hopefully in the future, the Kings Canyon project, for example, was completed with funding through a federal land access program grant, which enabled repaving and widening of part of Kings Canyon Road. And we're hoping that we could do something similar to make improvements to the Ash Canyon Road, and this would be a public works grant to make improvements to the road, but then also construct a trailhead. We just need to figure out where we could construct that trailhead. But yeah, I agree. The west side desperately needs improvements to their trailheads.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. And thank you for everything you're doing. Every single one of these trails is so exciting. Can't wait until they're all finished.
Yeah, more of comments. So looking through your report, I've been using the Prison Hill area for many years now. It's actually an area that we would take our seasonal employees and teach them how to four-wheel drive trucks before we send them out all over the state of Nevada. But what you guys have done in the last year and a half is more than the BLM ever did in the 100+ years that they own that area. But it's something that, so great job on that. But the second thing is I'm going to follow up with you later. I'd like to take a trip out there with you, find a time, because it's been, a lot has changed in the recent 6 months, year and a half, to where I'd like to see a little bit more and be able to address and look through some of the issues that have been brought up by the public together and just have a chance to walk through it with you, because you are living and dreaming that. So I'd like to actually be able to see it the same way you do.
Absolutely. Just send me an email and we'll schedule a time.
I would like to be included on that tour, please.
Okay.
Oh, you got a hand waving.
We have to, one thing we have to be careful, we can't have a quorum, so yeah.
We'll create some separate guided tours from Greg.
Mark, is that what you wanted Christine to be included? I think that's what you want.
I know she talked to her dog. That's cute. I know, foo-foo dog.
Mark, did you have?
I just wanted to, I love that's one of the best interpretive panels I've ever seen is when with the wings. I just think that's so great.
Yeah.
Hands-on thing with your child sitting there with you to show them the wingspan I think that was one of the best displays I've ever seen. So I don't know who was, it sounds like Kaylee's the artist, but that was a cool concept. Just
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, thank you. And we are excited to host interpretive programs out there, both bird watching and programs for kids, because it's a perfect location to take small children or young children and introduce them to the bird habitats. And yeah, we're excited about that.
Well, that's one of the things I hope that, it will. The Carson River Plan will deal with some opportunities in best place and maybe amphitheaters and things that help school people out and school groups out and support them with all these cool activities, because it's such a, like, as Lindsay hears me say all the time, we are so fortunate to have a river go through our community in Nevada, and that it's owned by the public primarily. That's huge. It's just a huge, huge asset. So I always give Greg accolades. He's a man that stands alone for it, and his record shows it. Too bad I didn't know the trail count. She already had one. That metric would have been nice to put in here to show people the type of use you're talking about. So nothing but accolades, Greg. And that I tell everybody that he also chairs the local collaboration for trails on his own choice that has been very successful in getting all the trail groups in this whole Eastern Front together, at least quarterly, to discuss all the issues and the best ways to get these things done. So thanks, Greg.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions okay, the Prison Hill West. So I'm assuming that at some point from Kuntz to Fairview, we're going to go after a connection.
So yeah, Prison Hill West will connect Kuntz to Clearview to the south end, and then we need to complete a segment around the south end to connect into where Mexican Ditch Trail hits the dam.
Right, but then we need to, on the north end, we need to.
There's another segment that needs to go north to connect into the existing trail on Fairview.
Fairview, okay, yeah. Odyssey Trail, is that going to eliminate that trench?
Yes. Yes.
That will be very nice. How are you going to eliminate that trench? I think you need the masticator for that one.
Yeah, we probably need a backhoe or something for that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate that trench. I've hated that trench for years, and it keeps getting. I mean, it's almost up to my neck now, isn't it? It's deep.
After it flooded in 2017, when I
Yeah.
first went out there, it was, or in 2017, yeah. It was it was it was almost about neck high, yeah.
Yeah.
Deep.
And the Riverview Park revamp, is that going to also revamp the Korean War Memorial or just around it?
That's a great question. So no, we don't want to do anything to the memorial, but we want to improve access to it. And so right now, the road at the end of Fifth Street actually goes around that memorial, and we have parking in two different areas. And so we're gonna put parking in one place, and we're gonna have pathways that are wheelchair or ADA accessible to get to the memorial. We want to re-landscape it and just really enhance it and make it look a lot nicer than it is. And then also the two historic structures that are out there that now have the chain link fence around them, we want to redo that so it's got attractive fencing and interpretive signs and highlight those historic features. So we want to provide better access to what is out there now.
One of the things that once we get a volunteer coordinator, one of the things I would like to recommend that they focus on for the OHV area is something like the bike patrol that is being developed for the trails. So you have volunteers that are working to keep people on the designated trails that are working, in conjunction to keep people where they should be kept.
Absolutely.
I think that would be very beneficial. So I think that's all I had, but it's a great, as always, a fantastic report. I mean, I have friends in Reno and Douglas County, and they are green with envy with what we have here in Carson City. So. Did not require a motion, right?
No,
Now, you brought
I
up a,
think Casey had a question too.
Oh,
I saw her
Oh.
raising her hand several times.
Christine, you have a question?
No, I did actually ask the question, and with my dog on my lap, I've forgotten what it is. Sorry.
Well, if you remember it.
well, that just brought up, do the Rangers have mountain bikes?
Yes, we purchased, a couple of years ago, we purchased 2 e-bikes for them.
E-bikes?
Yes.
Oh, that's cheating.
They have,
Yes, right.
they have found that they can respond to some areas quicker on their e-bikes than they can.
I
with their
totally
vehicle. Yeah.
understand. I would suggest the same thing myself, but had to make a comment to that, though. Especially if they pass people doing 20 mile an hour. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
This did not require a motion, did it? No. That's right. All right, great report as usual. Senior Natural Resources Specialist and Open Space Manager report. Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lindsay Boyer, Open Space Manager for the record. This report was primarily put together by Georgia Vasey, our Senior Natural Resource Specialist, but she could not be here tonight, so I'm going to update you on some of the projects she's been working on. So it was mentioned tonight that there was the fire on Prison Hill back in July that was started by lightning. So we did go through the process of obtaining grant funding to help support the re-veg effort for that property. So in December of this year, we aerially seeded the burned area on Prison Hill with a really robust seed mixture that had perennial grasses, forbs, and shrubs. Georgia spent a lot of time talking to all of the different land managers and restoration ecologists in the state to really understand what makes a project successful. Since Prison Hill is such a priority area, we really wanted to make sure that we got our bang for our buck. So she had a lot of assistance in putting together that seed mix, and then we really lucked out in terms of weather. We got those awesome Christmas storms right after the seeding took place, and we've had several storms since then. So I'm really hopeful that we're going to have pretty good success. Those are the kinds of winter precipitation events that we need to make the seeding successful. Hopefully we get a few more spring storms to really pull us through the season. But we're really excited to see what comes up out there. And then in the fall, we did establish a bunch of monitoring plots, I think 10 or so. So she'll be able to go out and run transect lines and be able to do some monitoring and figure out how successful we were, so we can look at that seed mix and decide, whether or not it was a good one, or if we need to tweak anything, or just really be able to tell us how successful we were on that project. So we're very excited to see what comes up. Related to the Carson River, a few updates here. So we have a super exciting project in the works, working with the Institute of Applied Ecology. They have the Sagebrush in Prisons project, where they work with the inmates over at the Northern Nevada Correctional Center, and they use locally sourced sagebrush seed to grow up plants for restoration. The previous director of that program reached out to us asking about the potential to grow up some pollinator plants, so change kind of what they've been focusing or add that into what they've been focusing on. So working with that individual, we have a bunch of locally collected pollinator plant species seed that we are going to work with the prison inmates on, and they're going to grow up that pollinator seed, and then we're going to use those plants in restoration along the river, with the goal of creating kind of pocket pollinator gardens throughout the river corridor to provide additional habitat for bees and butterflies, to further our Bee City initiative that we have throughout the city. So we're super excited about that. We did submit a grant application to Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District to help kind of offset some of those costs. While they weren't able to fund it totally, they did add some additional money into River Wrangler's budget to help kind of support the back end of that project, to help us with planting and things like that. So they had a lot of priorities this year, but they saw it as a really cool project that they wanted to be a part of in some way. So we're moving forward with that, and we're really excited to establish some more pollinator habitat in the river. Another update related to the river. So the EPA has been working on their proposed interim plan for the Carson River Mercury Superfund site. So for those of you who don't know, the Carson River is one of the largest Superfund sites in the country, specifically because of mercury that is in the system from our history of mining. So we've been a Superfund for a really long time. The EPA has spent a lot of time trying to figure out what to do about that. So that's kind of part of what this plan is a bunch of proposals for different mitigation measures. So they have kind of 3 different proposed plans that are within this interim plan, and they've been taking comment from the different stakeholders in the watershed about those plans. They have a specific tract that they're recommending, which is essentially kind of a hands-off methodology with maybe some increased stringencies on how the Superfund site is handled. So what they're proposing is to kind of focus all their efforts in preventing the consumption of contaminated wildlife by people, which makes total sense. We absolutely should be doing that. Increased education and outreach, continued monitoring, all of those great things. The alternative that they're proposing does not include bank stabilization as an emphasis, which we know that the mercury is kind of contained in the soil within the river, and it is released through disturbance, construction projects, things like that, or high flooding. So we know that bank stabilization is a priority to keep the mercury in place. So for what they're proposing, it would not provide funds for those activities, which, we are lucky enough that we have a dedicated funding source, but a lot of jurisdictions and entities aren't as lucky. So as of looking at it from a watershed-wide scale, that was something that we provided comment on, that we felt like that was something that was really important that needed to be included. Also in their proposed alternative, it would impose some stronger restrictions and permitting requirements for those bank stabilization activities. They're kind of lumping it all into construction as a whole, but we know that a lot of bank stabilization activities can be completed just through revegetation or willow pole planting, things that really don't cause a lot of disturbance. So the city did work to put together comments. We worked in coordination with the Carson Water Sub-Conservancy District to put those together. I don't have a copy for you tonight because they were being completed right as this packet was being put together, but if anyone would like to see a copy of those, I'd be happy to share. And I did provide just kind of a little high-level overview of the Superfund situation in your packet as well. Other items, so we did do some community programs in education this fall. So now that we have Georgia Vasey, our senior natural resource specialist, on board, she has a strong background in outplanting and working with volunteers and revegetation projects. So there's a couple photos here of some outplanting projects that were completed this past fall. We worked with river wranglers and some local volunteers to plant up a bunch of plants, 100 or 250 or so, out at the Moffett open space. We had a fire out there a couple years ago, so we did restore that area. And that was another one where, we got some storms afterwards, and because it's so close to the office, we've been able to go out and provide some supplemental watering. So we're hopeful that that will be very successful. We also did the same thing out at Buzzy's Ranch along the trail. There's another loafing area where we've been doing some revegetation. So those have been exciting projects. We're excited to do a lot more, especially when we bring on the volunteer coordinator. Other projects I'd like to highlight, so under cultural review, we are working with consultants to do kind of a, we're calling it an OPLMA review, OPLMA memo. So the Omnibus Public Lands Management Act of 2009 that transferred Prison Hill, Silver Saddle, and many other acres to our jurisdiction did come with some cultural resource monitoring requirements. But one thing that the city doesn't even have is an overview report of what's been inventoried, what hasn't been inventoried, priority areas. There's kind of a whole clock that is attached to these reviews. They're only good for 10 years. So we really need to understand what's been done and what needs to be done so that we can prioritize and start knocking out some of these areas so that we can do projects and maintain the lands as we need to. So that's going to be probably a fairly large task, but a very important task. So we're excited to get that kicked off. Greg spoke to the Kings Canyon Trailhead project. I just wanted to provide an update on the dirt road portion. So for the last several years, we've been working with the Forest Service to complete repair of the dirt road portion of Kings Canyon, starting from the pavement and going up about 2 miles to the saddle of Kings Canyon Road. It was super eroded, had a lot of issues, especially after the 2017 flood. So the construction on that project has actually been ongoing since late fall. With all the snow we got over Christmas, which I don't think we were expecting, it did put the project on hold a little bit while they waited for things to dry out. But that should be wrapped up in the next couple weeks, which is very exciting. So that will now be passable and safe. And we won't have as many concerns about stranded vehicles and emergency access and things like that. So very excited to bring that project to fruition. A few other things I wanted to highlight since we met last. So we did have the Quality of Life celebration to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the passage of the Quality of Life Initiative. We had this day in October. It was a beautiful day out the ranch. Wonderful weather. We had the Sierra Sweethearts come and play music. We had a couple vendors, food, beverages, and some couple tabling events with our partners. But it was a great day. We probably had 100, maybe 150 people at its peak, maybe more. People were milling in and out throughout the day, but it was a really great day. Just so awesome to see how many people in the community came together to celebrate our achievements. So thank you to everyone who was a part of that and came out and spent the day with us. We also had cowboy poetry from Johanna Foster and Larry Marinol. Hopefully some of that is recorded somewhere because it was really cool, open space specific, Silver Saddle Ranch specific cowboy poetry. So we were very blessed to get to experience that. So I think that covers pretty much the highlights if anyone has questions.
Could I get a copy of the comments you sent in for the EPA Superfund? As somebody that pays attention to this specific site, it's slightly frustrating to see that they studied it for nearly 50 years to give it a hands-off approach.
Yeah. I'd like a copy of that too.
I will send that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Christine, do you have anything to say? Well, Susan? Nobody else? I was going to ask.
Good job.
Huh? Yeah. I was going to ask on the
Good job.
Horse Creek, Kings Canyon, is that going all the way up to the gate at Horse Creek, the improvements?
Yes, the project pretty much terminates just a little past that gate, actually, and it opens up a little bit, and then it terminates there. So access all the way up to Horse Creek will now be improved. And the goal of the project wasn't to make the road passable by, two-wheel drive vehicles. It's still meant to be a four-wheel drive road, but at least now people won't be stranded.
Thank you. You guys do such a great job. Yeah. Did you have anything, Mark? You didn't have anything?
No, I had nothing to say, because it's just all so good. The only thing that, it's too bad George is not here to get credit for the work she's doing.
Yeah.
That you have to fill that hat, so. No, it just shows what a professional job they do to protect this open space. It's just unreal. So you guys just outstanding, and I think you're an example for the country, so. I bet you there's no other program in the country that, for a population of 50,000 people, have anything near this, what you guys are doing. It's just, it's fun to be on here, and don't think you're wasting anybody's time with your reports. Be thorough and give it your chance to tell what you're doing. So I think it's great. Thank you.
Okay, director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. You have a copy of your Board of Supervisors' actions in your packet, if you have any questions on those. And then I just want, for vacancies within the department, we have one full-time park maintenance worker open, and then every seasonal position available is open. So just my, monthly plug for lifeguards, recreation leaders, you name it. We're really struggling throughout the entire department, which is a nationwide problem right now. But for example, at the swimming pool, we have, less than 50% of our normal staff. So lots of great opportunities for first-time jobs, high school kids, college, fun jobs, great way to get into the department, get outside, have a good time, exercise, all those things, and you get paid. So part of the supplementals that we're bringing forward is an increase for all of our seasonal staff. So that'll be a part of the package that we're going to be sending in to get to the minimum wage mandate ahead of schedule. So we're going to be bringing that forward to the board. So hopefully that makes us more attractive to work for. I think Ben was going to provide a quick legal update on Buzzy's Ranch for you as well.
Ben Johnson, Senior Deputy District Attorney for the record. I just wanted to let the committee know that final judgment was entered last week in the Tahoe hemp case that involved Buzzy's Ranch. And so final judgment was entered in the city's favor. And we were also awarded attorney's fees and costs. So we were able to recoup some of the money that the city had to spend on that litigation. So I just wanted to let you all know, since you worked so hard to acquire it, that we equally fought hard to protect it.
Thank you, thank you. That's put to rest. Does the committee is the committee all aware of that issue? Okay. Mark, you had something to
I
say?
just wanted to, just a comment to Jen. You can't get the inmates, so I saw that you had to use services and use a private contractor to do my front of my house, to do the landscape zones that you'll probably never want to do again. That's on Silver Oak, that the city owns and the inmates are usually the ones that do it. And your staff came out, but a private company came out and they forgot to do about half of it. So I went out and had to have a talk with them about, no, this is yours too.
Thanks for that.
But it's like, thank you for taking care of my landscape in front of my house here. So, but I saw you had to go to private service. That was must have been costly compared to inmates.
Well, we have sort of we used to be able to take care of that through seasonal workers, inmates, all of these combination of things. And we've had a lot of areas like Long Ranch, Silver Oak, a lot of the right-of-ways that the Parks Department takes care of, and we've had to contract that out. Another thing we're going to be putting forward in the budget is some of those rights-of-ways and city buildings that are sort of not in our lane, if you will. We're going to propose contracting some of those areas out so we can focus on parks, trails, and open space.
Member announcements? Nobody's got anything exciting happening?
Susan, you look like if I didn't know any better, you were in a closet because you need a picture or something behind yourself. I'm worried that you were like being held hostage somewhere. Some color of object behind you would have helped that situation out.
Hotel rooms, you never know. So, but I'm okay, Mark. Thank you for caring.
Okay. Any future agenda items? Oh, we got some.
I got one. Is she going to tell hers first? Or are you asking?
Well, I don't know. There's a list. What's this? This was. What is this, a future that we did? Oh, Open Space Advisory Committee, Parks and Rec Commission, retreat. We never did a retreat last year. We kept trying. So we're going to try again? Okay, sounds like fun. We used to do every year a visit of all of the open space. Juan used to drive us around and terrify me. I hated those. I spent most of the time hitting him in the back of the head. I don't know, are we going to try to do those again?
Yeah, good question. So, speaking to the retreat, obviously we had to cancel it because of there was literally a fire going on, and our whole department got diverted to help out with that, plus some COVID concerns. So we do want to revisit the retreat, especially now that some of the COVID restrictions have gone away. If everyone's feeling comfortable sitting all in the same room, we can revisit that and put something on the calendar. Maybe half of that day would be spent driving around. Maybe we would parse something totally out separately, but we are overdue for a field tour as well. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, because there's that one property clear up in the lake practically, up in the mountains. We did the elect chair, that's taken care of. Annual report, the joint meetings.
So, Madam Chair, the future agenda items is just meant to be kind of a running list. We throw things on here as they come up. Helps me plan for the next meeting. We don't always get to every item or they get shifted around, but this gives you guys an idea of what we're going to be talking about in the future. If you see any gaps or things you want to see added, this would be the time to let us know, or you can always reach out to staff separately.
Okay. And does anybody?
I got one question. I got one item that I need so I can understand the process here. So somebody comes into the meeting and had some opportunities they'd like us to look at for property acquisition. Is there a process in place that I'm not familiar with yet, because this is the first time that's come in, so that we look at properties and some point system or so, however it works? So you're shaking your head yes, so I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, excellent question. So we do have an acquisition assessment form that's created. It has a bunch of different fields, whether it's the natural resource component or the different criteria that it might hit, whether it's a view shed or agricultural land, floodplain, things like that. So there's different criteria assigned, different points assigned to those criteria. So the next step, whenever something's brought to us, whether it's from a member of the public in a setting like this, or sometimes we get reached out to directly by people selling their land or realtors or whatever, that's usually the next step, is we go through the process of doing that assessment, and then that gives staff a sense of if we should bring it back here for serious consideration or if it just doesn't meet the criteria for an acquisition.
If somebody comes official is on the record, they're not here now, well, one of them's here still. That's what your step would be? So the next meeting that might be on the agenda, or the next, depends upon your workload and stuff, that those properties are at least addressed to some level for them? Okay.
So we would look at those, and then depending on if they meet the criteria or not, we would bring it back to you. So we could provide an update saying staff looked into it and found XYZ, or it would just be coming to you as a potential action item.
Great. Well, I think that's great, because it shows action when somebody comes and at least makes a presentation that we had responded in some method or way. So that's great. I figured you had something in place. You guys all have your act together. So I'm fine. Thanks.
Did anybody have anything they wanted?
So to add on to that, you guys provided this great map of west side open space opportunities. And so it's great to see a map, but I have no background of like what's happening on a lot of these or any information. And if we could bring just kind of summary of ongoing discussions, where ones that recently we've gone through, the current status or potential for future opportunities, including what I just brought up a few moments ago.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely bring that back as a future item.
Anything else from anybody? Okay, so. All right, I'm going to open it up to public comment again once. On any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item, no action may be taken on any matter raised. Again, we'll be limiting to 3 minutes per comment.
Robin Orloff again. I know you've had a long night. You've had a long night, long time studying all these documents before you came. But I wanted to explain to you, I included this map so you understand what it's all about. You're probably going, what the heck is that? This was a map that was on the property prior to our contractors coming in and doing a site assessment. And in their site assessment, Novak and Reconnect, on page 19, number 13, they said currently there are 2 play areas shown on the map. These red areas here, play areas, are open riding areas, cross-country allowed anywhere in the boundaries. The one adjacent to the main staging area is heavily used, but the other one above the Snyder staging area does not show much use. And that's that red area, the open riding area that's right near Snyder, above the cable road in that west area, West Basin wash area that I'm concerned about. Based on current information, Reconnect says, I would be inclined to eliminate this play area, but that may change after input from the stakeholders. So initially, the site assessment was recommended that there not be open riding area in the area that now has 2 open riding areas. I believe that probably the OHV desires overruled the land, I would say, the land's needs. So we're kind of balancing, I think, sustainability and sacrifice. And I really feel like if you all come and do a walk, you have to go out there on your tour. You have to do boots on the ground, I think, into these washes to really see what's going on. And I think it's an actually excellent trail system, and rock crawling is great off the trail, or the great big area next to the staging area is full of it. You can access them almost by designated roads and trails there. But these 2 areas, the little ones connected by double waterfall, I think there is a question that we're really walking a fine line between sustainability here. And the fact that the erosion controls have increased from 27 at the beginning of the project. Now they're predicting 79 erosion control features, and I wonder, why that is. Are we impacting the area more, so we're having to deal with features to deal with that erosion? And is our grant money going for erosion control
30 seconds.
when it could be going towards keeping our trails sustainable? And from the City Unified Pathways, they say there are ecological considerations such as soil erodibility, riparian habitat, et cetera, that must be used to ascertain an area's ability to sustain OHV use. So even the Unified Plan addressed that. Locate trails in areas that don't cause soil erosion. The city will strive to minimize the impacts
3
of
minutes.
potential natural disaster, wildlife, and flooding. So I'd really like an opportunity. I know you're going to go out with staff, but I know this area intimately, and I'd appreciate, and Ron would too, an opportunity to take you out to see our experiences there, our observations. And thanks for all you do.
Ron Moe. Anyway, I'm curious on oversight. I had seen on the West Summit Loop some yellow painted patches. And then I noticed a week or 2 later that the rock had been crushed. So I don't know if whose oversight. I'd like to know what the heck for. I know, as far as I know, there's no oversight over this area anyway. Also, I noticed at least one trail that was not on the design, and how new trails get approved. Just questions, and thank you. You know anything about new trails, Greg?
Public comment, we can't respond to public comment, but if it's not on the agenda.
Right.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome to email staff as well.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada, Chair and panel. Benjamin, hi. Great. I mean, I'm just so amazed and so much in appreciation of all of your efforts. and the staff's amazing, and I know that Jennifer just works her fanny off, but I think it's a labor of love, so that's great. The next thing is, I just watched a program, and I'm sure it was PBS, and it was about mercury issues that I think it's Vancouver's dealing with their river. Perhaps the staff can look to what they've related and what they've found and their suggested possibilities on that, if you will. It would be a good resource. It was a great show. Unfortunately, I think it was at 4 o'clock this morning, and I fell asleep again during it. But I figure it's got to be PBS or such like that. And anyhow, you'll be able to find it if you just give it a look. And I also would like to say that the land that I suggested earlier as a consideration for procurement, God, I can't believe I've got that word right. But the deal is that the animals in this community haven't had a chance to really roam, and it's limiting them more and more as it goes. And that particular trail is used on a regular basis right through that property that's open. And I'd like to see it still be part of the deal. They get through there. I can't believe they get across College Parkway, but they do. They head on over and they head all the way through town, and they work their ways back as well. I'm seeing less and less of that because of other issues, but I really, really just want to tell you how much I appreciate. I would like to say I am a little concerned about some of the off-road equipment and such, that those pathways that are impacted by those working then come back and reseed and all that. And I'm sure Greg's got that figured. And I hate to keep using just first names because I'm not that familiar, but we've met somewhere before. But the thing is that I'm not really for off-road running. Bicycles, if they're kept to a small area, space, great. But some of those big wheeled off-road vehicles are very destructive. Up Northgate to the hillside in the west, the north of me, the trails are just beat to heck, and there's not a really resemblance that there was a deer track there before. So some of that I'm
30
not
seconds.
for. Thank you.
Was it?
I had more time.
30 seconds.
So I guess I'll use that time just to thank you again. Thank you very much.
Everybody? Is there anybody else? Any other comments? And I guess we're open for adjournment. I don't have to take a vote on that, do I? Let's adjourn.
Slam that.
My last time.
That's right.